There's still plenty more to do in New York City. More watches to try on, people to meet, and more food to try. So here's the second and final part of my New York City video. You asked for a longer video, so this will be a long video. And today I'm wearing the amazing 5212A Calatrava weekly calendar. This watch will indicate the week of the year, the month, the day of the week, and the date. It's a beautiful and unique watch made in stainless steel and is part of the Calatrava line. But it has complications and it does not have the hobnail pattern, so I'm not sure exactly what makes this a Calatrava. And maybe they should have put this in the complications line. For the last 2 days of breakfast, I had ordered the eggs, so now I'm trying something different and ordered the Belgian waffles. And I think this was a good choice because I was hungry and I ended up finishing the whole plate. I usually don't like sweets for breakfast, but I did have to use the syrup, otherwise the waffles would have been too dry. I believe this weekly calendar was released in 2019, so it's still a fairly new release. And I was able to purchase this from the authorized dealer shortly after the 6119G. I think this model is still fairly popular and not that easy to get from most authorized dealers. So you have to have some patience to get this from the authorized dealer, and I'm very fortunate to have this watch plus the 5226G. It's such a versatile watch. I enjoy wearing it with a suit, but as you can see in this video, you can also wear it with casual clothes. It's lightweight and comfortable to wear, and it's a very unassuming watch. The first mission for today is to try on a Panerai that's not too large for my wrist. So I looked up where the Panerai store was, and it's located here in the Hudson Yards, and I walked directly over here. I had never been to this area, and I didn't research this area before I started walking over here, but it is a nice looking place, very upscale. And I didn't realize there were going to be so many other watch stores in this area. And as soon as you enter the main entrance, you can see this mall has the motherlode of watch stores. There's a large Cartier store on the left, Bulgari, and then there's a Watches of Switzerland on the right. This store has many brands inside, including Rolex, Omega, JLC, Vacheron, and also Patek Philippe. I did not even know this store was here, but since I'm here, I might as well step inside. They did have a certified pre-owned section, and this Daytona with the meteorite dial caught my eye. This looks beautiful. I would like to have a meteorite dial, but prices have not come down, and this price was very high. And I don't think I've ever seen this Speedmaster in person. This one is a solid white gold Speedmaster with a silvery dial, and this looks very nice. Also in their pre-owned section, they had this Vacheron, so I was finally able to try on a self-winding overseas in 41 millimeters. This steel version with the black dial looks great, but still unfortunately too large for my wrist. A couple versions of the pre-owned Nautilus I got to try on for sizing purposes. This one in full rose gold looks great. And an older version of the stainless steel Nautilus. This size looks good. It doesn't look too large for me, and I think I could wear this size. But prices on these two watches were astronomical. So this Watches of Switzerland store is a good store to visit if you're in the area. It has a great variety of watches to look at. And moving past the Cartier store, it looks very large, but I did not go inside. And I'm still looking for the Panerai store and a few more brands you can see on the way. Finally, next to the Piaget store is the Panerai, which looks like a fairly small store. I had always thought that Panerai would be extremely large for me, but my friend Nico from Dubai Expat showed off his Panerai on his video, and it looked really nice on his wrist. So let's see if I can find a Panerai that's not too large for my wrist. And the one that I like the best is this 38 millimeter with a dark gray dial. It's stainless steel. The finishing on the dial looks great, and the price is only $6,900. And the size does look okay on my wrist, and this is something that I could wear. The salesperson was very friendly. There were only two salespeople there and no other customers in the store. So he spent a lot of time with me answering my questions about the watch. I asked him how long is the wait list for this watch. It was a dumb question, but it kind of just slipped out. And he looked at me strangely and then he said, this watch is available immediately for sale. So I was almost about to buy this watch, but then I said I'd like to think about it. And now I've changed my mind. I don't think I want to add another affordable watch to my collection right at the time when I'm trying to consolidate my collection. But it is a good looking watch, but maybe just not the right purchase for me right now. Next stop is to meet up with some friends at Bryant Park, and I'm going to take the subway there for the first time. I actually like to use the subway, especially when it's not crowded. You can get to any location fairly quickly. The platform is hot and stuffy, but inside the cars are well air conditioned, and you usually don't have to wait too long for the next train to come. First up is the dependable and reliable Explorer. It's so versatile, and I think this makes a great summer watch. 36 millimeters is the correct size, and it's the traditional size for the Explorer. Next up is a beautiful looking Patek Philippe. This is also a great size to wear. This is now discontinued, but it still looks modern and classic at the same time. This kind of watch will never go out of style within a lifetime. I had a great time with a couple of friends talking about watches and cameras. We took a nice short walk afterwards, but my feet are getting tired from all the walking, so I'm going to head back to the hotel and have some dinner. I checked into a different hotel to try out a different part of the city, and they have a food credit as part of the room, so I'm going to have a burger and fries at the bar. Nothing great or nothing special, but just something for a small dinner. The next morning, I'm taking a walk to look for a New York City bagel for breakfast. I feel safe wearing this watch in the city and pulling it out to pose for wrist shots. I noticed a lot of Rolex in the city, Submariners, Datejust, Oyster Perpetual, and GMT Master 2, but I don't think anyone ever noticed this Patek Philippe on my wrist. I arrived at Essa Bagel to try out their bagel sandwich, and this store is on the list for the best bagels in New York City, 15 best things to do in New York City, and 10 irresistible New York City bagels. It was very crowded inside, even though it was later in the morning, and there was a long line, but the line was moving pretty quickly, and it didn't take too long to get my order. There's not much room to sit inside, so I was lucky to get a seat. I ordered the signature bagel, and this has the salmon with lettuce and tomato, cream cheese, and capers. I got it on the everything bagel, and it is a large sandwich and very filling, and $21 is just about the standard price for a New York City bagel. It was a good sandwich, but nothing extraordinary. The salmon tasted good. There was a good crunch from the lettuce and onions, a good amount of cream cheese, But because of the everything bagel, it was a little bit salty, so next time I could do without the capers. I realize the watch does look slightly large on my wrist because it's 40 millimeters and it has a white colored dial. But I think this is wearable on my wrist. It really doesn't hang over my wrist. And I like the case shape. It does curve slightly over to the wrist. And I like that Patek Philippe has unique cases to all its different watches. And they just don't use the same case design over and over like Rolex does. And for my next stop, I'm going to meet up with another friend at a very nice location. And I'm going to see some extraordinary watches. And on the way, I'll walk through Grand Central Station. They have a nice market there, and they also have a Swatch store there. The watch, I think, can go with a wide variety of straps. This is not the factory strap. It normally comes with one in a lighter color. But thanks to Michael Knapp, who made me this custom leather strap in a slightly darker color, which I think goes better with the watch. I'm fortunate enough to be meeting up with a friend who has a very impressive, incredible collection and get some advice from him. These are the kind of watches you just cannot see every day. I asked him to bring the two-tone Nautilus because I had never seen that in person, and I also wanted to try it on for size. But he also brought along a surprise dress watch, which I was just not expecting. The location inside was very nice, very private, but the views were spectacular. Great views of the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building. It was very quiet and relaxing inside, away from the noise of the big city. There's a separate bar area which was not open that day, but I could use it to get some photographs. Here is the stunning Nautilus in all its glory. On my wrist it looks large, but this watch overall looks much better in person. Videos cannot do this justice. On my friend's wrist, it looks much better, and that blue dial looks much better in person than I can show on the video. And here, I think, is the biggest surprise watch of the whole trip. A not so common, a masterpiece of watchmaking, the FP Journe with a mother of pearl dial. I think this brand is expanding in popularity as more and more people recognize this watch for what it is. Quality watchmaking, attention to detail, great finishing, and original designs. 40 millimeters, maybe on my wrist, looks a little bit large, but here I think it looks great on a 7-inch wrist. Comparing the sizes between these two Patek and the FP Journe, all three of these are 40 millimeters in diameter, but I think subjectively each one looks slightly different. I've had several people say to me that I should look closer at FP Journe, but I had never seen one in person. But now that I have, I can start to see what they mean. But I also have to consider that these watches are not that easy to get. They're actually very difficult to get, and it takes a large investment in time to pursue one of these watches. But I'm glad to have seen the two-tone Nautilus in person and the FP Journe. And thanks again for hosting me in such a nice location. The food was great, the watches were great, and the views were spectacular. As I've said, I'm not quite ready to jump into a different brand. I'm very happy with Patek Philippe. I'd like to stay with them and maybe pursue some more pieces with them. I'm walking to meet another friend in the West Village for drinks. And this is the great thing about New York City. It's all the little surprises that pop up as you're walking. I'm walking through this park and I see this amazing statue that I completely forgot was here. David Glasgow Farragut, one of my favorite naval officers, the winner of the Battle of New Orleans and the Battle of Mobile Bay during the Civil War. Damned the torpedoes and full speed ahead. He was the very first Rear Admiral of the United States Navy and the very first Vice Admiral. The White House Tavern in the West Village is one of the oldest continuing taverns in New York City. This is a nice little neighborhood, quiet and good for walking down the streets. Perfect for a drink and appetizer and great conversation. I asked him to bring his JLC, which looked great in the photos, and I wanted to see it in person. He was not very satisfied with the busyness of the dial and the legibility, but I think it still looks great. I like the dial and I like the color and how it complements the case and the watch strap. The case is just a little bit thick, but it is an annual calendar complication, so you have to fit that all in the case. I can't say for sure, but if I had this in my collection, I might be reluctant to sell this one. But anyways, it's not all about that. I really appreciate all your advice and your friendship. I think what I've learned as I look at JLC, as I look at Panerai, as I see FP Journe for the very first time, I keep coming back to Patek Philippe. There's so much variety in their catalog. There's more to explore, and I really hope that I'm not done with Patek Philippe. Dinner again tonight was at the bar, and this time I tried the chicken cutlet and I was pleasantly surprised. It was breaded and cooked perfectly, and the size was larger than I expected, and the spice level and seasoning was just perfect. This is my last day in the city. I did not have any breakfast today, just some orange juice, and I really don't have an agenda for today. I'll just walk as long as I can and see what happens, but I did want to try a New York pizza slice. So I walked quite a bit again, but I did have some good surprises today. I walked over to the Armory, which is one of my favorite menswear brands. Mark Cho was not there, Alan C was not there either, but I talked to one of the salesmen there. I asked when Liverano was coming back, but they're actually tapering off their relationship with the Liverano, and after 2 more visits, Liverano will be doing their trunk shows elsewhere. I asked him where the best New York pizza slice was nearby, and he suggested Lucia, which was an 11-minute walk north on Broadway. I originally wanted to go to Scar's Pizza, but they don't open until 12 noon, and I was walking in the different direction. Lucia is separated into 2 parts. There's a place for ordering the pizza, and there's a separate place as a cafe area with some seating, but you're welcome to bring the pizza over to the cafe area. I ordered the pepperoni slice, and with a bottle of water and with the tip, it's about $10, and I would say it's a very good slice and worth it. It's a thin crust, very nice char on the bottom, and the pepperoni has just the very right level of spice. They put on a fresh piece of basil, which is very refreshing, but the crust does get dry at the end, so maybe a little bit more sauce would be welcome. Here's another surprise in New York City. I just happened to run into a Lemmy store in New York City, which I never even knew was here. This is one of my favorite brands of pens, and it turns out New York City has the flagship store, and there's also a store in San Francisco. I already have the Lamy 2000 and the Safari, but I've never seen this much selection in a single store at a single time. So I found this fountain pen and I couldn't resist buying it and buying it from the flagship store in New York City. It was about $75, but it's a good value compared to a Mont Blanc pen. The body is made of brass and the design is so clean and industrial, it feels so great in the hand. And I think the salesperson looked me over while I was visiting. He noticed my Leica camera, which was over my shoulder, and he made a comment about that. He noticed my Randolph aviator sunglasses on the front of my shirt, and he made a comment of that. But he did not notice my Patek Philippe watch on my wrist. So that's just another example of how under the radar that Patek Philippe is. I'm walking through Washington Square Park, a really nice park, nice place to sit, but I'm not sure why this guy did not get arrested. He was standing in the middle of the fountain for a very long time. It's very hot, and most of the parks you can find a nice place to sit in the shade to cool off. I'm so hot, I'm going to try a iced coffee at Blank Street Coffee. I got the iced latte with oat milk for about $7, including tip, but I should have asked for half the amount of milk because it mostly tasted of oat milk and I couldn't taste the coffee as much. But it was very cold and refreshing and I was able to cool down. I keep saying that Patek Philippe does not come across as well in photos or videos as it does in person, and the weekly calendar is no different. The font on the letters and numerals on this dial is very unique and it resembles a handwritten font, which is very different than any other watch you'll see. I had a great time again this year in New York City. This city is like no other in the world, but it's time to wrap it up and go home. But I'll be back again. If anyone lives in New York City and would like to meet up, just send me an email or just leave me a comment below and I'll try to get back to you. But I'll try to get back to New York City as soon as I can. I need to get back to Penn Station and take the train back to my car in New Jersey and then drive home. But really, thanks to everyone that I met up on this visit. You really made this trip very special. My next travel video will be to Chicago, so if anyone wants to meet up there, let me know, or just send me a message about where you suggest I should visit.